Hey you guys, I'm Funky Like Feathers, and today I'm going to be telling you all about the books that I read in July. What did you read this month? Let me know down in the box below. I want to hear from y'all. Welcome back, and if you are new here, welcome to my channel. Like I said, my name is Funky Like Feathers, and today I'm going to be telling you about the books that I read in the month of July for 2021. So I'm going to start with a younger age bracket and then work up to adult books since I do read from all of the different genres. So let's get started. So I did read the last book so far in the last Firehawk series. This is book number 9, The Golden Temple. Now, book number 10 does come out in November to kind of complete this series. So I'm kind of bummed at the fact that it's not out yet, but I am looking forward to November to finally getting that last one. The last Firehawk series is about a firehawk, a barn owl, and a little squirrel, and all of them work together in order to fight off a vulture named Thorn who is trying to take over their land of Parodia. But they have to find out kind of more about Blaze the Firehawk's family and what all the situation is there, because supposedly Blaze was the last Firehawk. However, throughout the series, you find out more about these friends as well as how the Firehawk system works. So, like I said, I am excited to see how the last book ends because we have a supposed twin for the villain. And so I'm wondering if it's actually a twin or if it's the villain pretending to be its own twin, that kind of thing. So again, we won't find out until November. Next up is The Haunted Library. Now, this is the first book in the series. There are 10 total. So this is about Claire, Kaz, and Mr. Beckett. Kaz actually lived in an old schoolhouse with the rest of his ghost family, and when a wrecking ball comes through the schoolhouse, everybody gets blown away. He ends up landing in a library where Claire lives with her family upstairs. So it's kind of interesting because, you know, there's supposedly ghosts in the library. Now, throughout the entire series, they try to find Kaz's family. And along the way, they find some things that are not really ghosts, but are investigated as hauntings. So it's kind of cool because they don't always find a family member, which is nice because that way it's not always the exact same thing. Oh, every book you'll find a family member. That's not how it works. The author actually does kind of keep you on your toes about what is happening in each of the different places that they investigate. So this is a really fun book, especially for ages kind of 8 to 12, I would go to. It is a very fun series. This past month, I did read 2 books from the Kingdom of Renly series. This is a new series for me. It is about Prince Lucas and, what is her name? It's about Prince Lucas and Clara here, who end up becoming friends, luckily, even though Lucas's dad, the king, doesn't want him to be friends with any commoners, right? So they end up going on an adventure in this first book to go find Lucas's mother's missing stone from her necklace. And then in this second book, we have the Scarlet Dragon, where they actually end up finding, obviously, a dragon egg. So there's a lot of adventure along the way. I do like the fact that just like Haunted Library, we do have a lead role played by male and female characters. So this is fun for any kid between the ages, I would say, of 5 to 10. This is a pretty good series. So moving up just a little bit out of that 5 to 10, this is going to be more in that 10 to 12 range. So this was The Fog Diver. I read this with my kid before bed. This is kind of a perfect book for before bedtime. If you want the right length of chapters, and at the end of every chapter, there's just a little bit of a cliffhanger kind of thing where it's enough to keep you interested if you wanted to read more, but at the same time, you can end at the end of each chapter and just be ready for the next one. This was a really cool story. It follows Chess, and we've got Hazel in Swedish, and there's also a character named Bee there. It's a group of kids who live on this floating ship because the entire world has been covered with fog, and if anybody stays in the fog for too long, they end up getting fog sickness. Chess, however, was born in the fog, so he's able to go in and out of it in order to dive in to find stuff so that they can sell. So it's really interesting. All of the drama that happens here, it really does kind of build up nicely. You've got a lot of adventure. You've got a lot of really exciting things going on at the same time as having a really laid back conversational tone. so that kids can really enjoy it. And, you know, there's no like stuck up stuff in here. The language is very nice and relaxed. It's just an all around fun story. Now, as far as YA for this month, I actually read a couple of graphic novels. So one of the first ones was called Dark Matter. Now, I wasn't quite expecting what I got from this one. It was really interesting to see how the author played with the fact that there was a character who has kind of depression at the time, or at least is going through a lot of stuff, you know, emotionally and mentally, and she calls it matter. Right, because it does matter. So it's her dark matter, which I thought was kind of cool. This book does really well on helping the reader understand emotions, helping the reader understand different kinds of frustration and how to process different emotions as well. This was actually a very cool book. I have to say, I definitely suggest this. If you have an issue with depression or anything like that, this actually could be a really good book just to kind of look into. Like I said, it is a graphic novel, so it's a little bit more casual as opposed to regular books, but it is a very nice touch on the subject. One of the other graphic novels I checked out this month was The Prince and the Dressmaker. This was a very fun story. Now, number one, trigger warning, I guess, for some people who don't feel comfortable with cross-dressing. This book is about how the prince is the one who has the dressmaker, and the acceptance and the, you know, the fun times that he and the dressmaker have as far as designing outfits and going out in public, and the acceptance that he has to find not only in himself, but hopefully with his family. This was a very fun book. It is a little bit larger. The Prince and Dressmaker is pretty thick, but it's worth the read. It was a lot of fun. It was just flirty and exciting. And, you know, there's a lot of turmoil that goes through it, obviously, for different families, different folks. This could be, you know, triggering in different ways, but I absolutely loved it. I thought it was amazing. The last graphic novel that I read this month is called Fangirl. Now, this is based off of an actual novel, but I loved this graphic novel version. I'm really hoping that a second one comes out soon. So this is more on the YA spectrum. There is language in this one that you won't find in other younger age books, but this one definitely, you're going to be in the YA section to find this. The main character is absolutely fun. So the main character's name is Kath, and she is a definite fangirl. She writes fan fiction for a prominent book series in her universe, and she's well known online because of her fan fiction. She ends up going to college, and this is kind of some of the adventures that she goes on in that first year, trying to kind of figure out her new place in the world and how to function as a college student. It's very cool. The end leaves you with a great cliffhanger that really makes you want to jump into number 2. So like I said, I'm really looking forward to the next one on this. Okay, so the next book, people call this series YA, and I have to say that I don't agree. I don't see this series as a YA series. I see it as an adult series, especially because I've noticed throughout the books that as the stories progress, you get more and more intense triggers, I guess. Like the sexual content comes in, the language comes in, so it's kind of like the author just kind of stepped it up every single time, and that is the Throne of Glass series. So I finished Crown of Midnight, and, you know, this was really fun, especially because we finally got to see the character open up and move forward in her training and in her challenges that she had, because the first book was pretty much only her, you know, making it through to become the King's Champion. So this one is where we really get to kind of see her character grow into who she's supposed to be and who she really is. We find out more about her backstory. We find out how she follows through with what the king is telling her to do. We find out more about what's going on in the kingdom itself, and also more about the magic system. So the magic system comes more into play here, whereas the previous books, we just kind of touch on the fact that there's magic and there's a little bit going on, but in this one we really kind of start to dive into it. So this was a lot of fun. Again, the names kind of get to me. Apparently, though, I did not realize that there's a pronunciation guide for the characters in Throne of Glass. So I need to check that, because apparently I know for a fact I've got to be pronouncing some of these characters' names incorrectly. So I'm definitely going to be checking that. But like I said, this is the official book 2 in the series. Really, it's book 3 because there is already a prequel. So that's frustrating how the numbers work, but this is book 2. All right, so this next book is kind of a classic, kind of fun. I have read it before, but I did read it again and finished up this month, and that is And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie. This book, I would say, is pretty much for YA and above. There are some, derogatory terms and politically incorrect verbiage that is in it, just because it also fits the time, though. So that's one of the things to think about. Obviously, there's death. And then there were none. 10 people show up on an island for a supposed dinner party and nobody leaves. Dun, dun, dun. I know, right? So it is a very fun book, though. It's kind of cool to kind of keep track of everything. I annotated this thing like crazy. It is so colorful inside. And I show this all the time because I think it's absolutely hilarious. There's so much stuff in here. You're going to want to read it more than once. I'm going to tell you that now. Like, reading it for a second time, absolutely an eye-opener. And the whole time I was like, oh my God, it was right there. She totally told you what was going to happen. So definitely read it more than once. We're almost there. Can you feel it? All right, so I read a new title that came out this month. I got it from Book of the Month. It was The Maidens. This is the same author who wrote Silent Patient. I loved The Silent Patient. I did not like the dust jacket. I know, weird, right? But the feel of the dust jacket of The Silent Patient was awful. It's rough, but not quite rough enough, and it's not quite smooth. I don't know. But this one is Book of the Month, so everything's nice and smooth. It has kind of that dark academia feel. You do have some Greek history or mythology that gets pushed into it. However, everything is step by step introduced to you because they're literally at a university with professors. So it walks you through the information about the mythology stories. So don't worry if you don't know Greek mythology. It is a murder mystery, thriller, psychological thriller, and dark academia. If that kind of, it's like saying Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You just kind of push it all into one. The main character works in psychology and ends up finding out that there are murders happening at her illegitimate niece's university. And so she ends up going there to find out what's going on. There's major twists and turns in this one. You will think that you know who did it, and you will think that you know what is going on, but you won't. That's my bet. If you don't trust me, read it, and then let me know. Did it get you? And don't lie. Like, seriously. Like, just stick to it. It's okay to be like, oh man, that one got me. It totally got me. Like, I had multiple theories, and they were all wrong. Every single one. So that's kind of exciting. I am really excited to see the fact that this author came out with a second book. And it's kind of cool too, because this book, even though it came out second, does tie into The Silent Patient as if it were a bit of a prequel. So that's kind of cool too. I like the fact that it got tied together. All right, last but not least, book that I finished this month, Jane Eyre. I know you can't read that. There you go. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is a classic, obviously. I have read it more than once. It is a fun story. It's written in a very different format, obviously. The language is very different. It's more of that romantic, poetic style of writing. But it is a very classic story, obviously, for many reasons. There's a lot of stuff that happens in here. There's a lot of socioeconomic situations that kind of change up throughout the story. And it's the basis of so many other books out there that you just can't say that it's not an important book. So it's really cool to kind of, hit the classics up every now and then. I do think that every single story needs to have the crazy lady in the attic. Why does every book not have this? I do also like the fact that the book is loosely based on Charlotte's real life. That's always kind of a fun twist to it. All in all, I read several books this month. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I read a dozen books this month, which is pretty good. But again, if you factor in that I'm reading some children's and middle grade books as well, that kind of boosts the numbers and they read faster. I'm looking forward to what I'm reading next month, if you're ready for that. I have another video coming up that will show you all the books that I'm planning to read for August of 2021. Let me know your favorite book from this past month down in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys, and I will see y'all on the next video.